I don't want to say much because what we are trying to create is something that we haven't seen before in Indian cinema.
Goddamn right.
In many ways, when I hear Aditya Dhar specifically say this, many dismiss it because they equate it to a filmmaker just hyping his own product. But when I see the visuals from the teaser and trailer, not only does Durandhar seem like the antithesis to the synthetic and glamorized aesthetic of the spyverse we got tired of, but actually seems like the perfect answer to the desperate call to action that audiences wanted when they say they wanted action films to be gritty, raw, realistic, and full of fire. This is where I believe a filmmaker is really putting their money where their mouth is. Durandhar and its production journey has been nothing short of a whirlwind. I remember vividly on 27 July 2024 when Aditya Dhar first announced the film with a square poster of the actors cast in the film, and I couldn't be more elated to see what these talented bunch of artists would pull off. Whenever I do read about the movie, I was glad to know that the investment was being targeted towards elements that can be seen in the frames of the film. Numbers that promise us scale but deliver it too when we see the teaser and trailer. I mean, the film has had quite a schedule across countries, the most fascinating actually being in recreating Pakistan in Thailand, taking nearly 3 months to set up the monstrous sets, recreating the era through cuttings, old movies and headlines of a space that spanned over 6 acres. What comes with such massive planning and especially the adamant nature to shoot the film in practical locations is that you're going to get into roadblocks. The team in one of its last schedules had an absolutely horrifying scare in Ladakh where 120 crew members were hospitalized due to food poisoning, obviously causing delays in shoots and the film's cost only increasing. I hear that as close as last month, some of the sequences of the movie were still being shot, a pressure that the filmmakers have undergone because they really are adamant in meeting the reserved release date of 5th December, come what may. Everything, of course, has not been hunky-dory, and there is a lot of speculation regarding what the film is really about, and I want to clarify two things really right off the bat, something for which you shouldn't have any doubts about. Think of this as an official source. Number one, which became something set in stone merely because of a rumor being spread, and so is the case of social media, I guess. Everyone was coming to their conclusions of what the film may be about through the teaser. The only character one can be sure about is R. Madhavan's character being modeled around National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. The look is uncannily similar and almost identical. Many created parallels of this story, specifically on how Ranveer Singh may be modeled around Major Mohit Sharma from the 1st Para Unit of the Parachute Regiment, who killed 2 Hizbul terrorists while posing as Iftikhar Bhatt. However, the deep dive that I did has made me realize that the storyline is inspired by a mix of covert operations that happened from the late 90s to the last 20 years or so. I say this because Arjun Rampal presents himself to be 6 years old in the trailer when he heard the radio coverage of the 1971 war. I can only assume that he's at least 40 years old in this timeline, making the movie either set in the late 90s or the mid 2000s, an extension that all of us were assuming because the dialogues from the teaser were referencing Sunny Deol's filmography from the early 90s. Lastly, and this has become a real point of debate and justifiably so because the theatre-going audience has been scarred many times with films, that Durandhar will present this story in 2 parts. Apparently, the subject material, the characters, the sheer volume of storylines that need to be expanded cannot be condensed to a feature film under 3 hours. The film is going to be Ranveer Singh's lengthiest film with a running time of over 3 hours long and will be spread around part 1 and part 2. This has been confirmed, and this regular nature of big budget movies promising more to be explored in part 2 has honestly been exhausting because in many cases these movies seem to present the promise of a part 2 as an afterthought versus what was already envisioned. Many times these part 2 promises are scrapped because they are only thought about and expanded upon if part 1 does well at the box office. The interesting aspect, at least with Durandhar, is that part 2 presumably is locked and ready too. So this is less of an afterthought and more a director doing justice to fully expanding on his universe without compromises. This is a huge risk irrespective, because Durandhar really needs to do some bonkers business for people to tune in again. And I absolutely dismiss the attitude that people have towards this merely being a cash grab, at least for this movie specifically. I think Aditya Dhar is passionate about the subject matter and genuinely does not want to compromise on the sheer effort that has gone down with the project. This may be the case of effective planning that was executed with projects like Gangs of Wasipur and Rakt Charitra being split in two parts versus movies that leave it to be pondered over after the financial results of the first part. I empathize with the hesitance of the audience though that comes with this announcement. I have been in theatres with too many movies waiting only to see the dumbest cliffhanger and the title stating wait for part 2. Bahubali did it and everyone followed suit, but it has to be necessary for the story, and well, it was also the brainchild of Rajamouli. Rajamouli is some different sauce, man. On another note, I know for a fact that the results of this movie won't be so dismal that it has to release part 2 unceremoniously digitally anyway. So there will be 2 parts, one in December this year and probably one in the mid-calendar year of 2026. Now let's get back into the elements of the trailer, and probably since the start of the year, what has been, at least for me personally, one of the most anticipated Indian movies of the year. Aditya Dhar and Shashwat Sachdev, specifically as the music composer, are adamant in cutting trailers based on the score, and you saw it clearly in the teaser on how the title track, a remake of the 1995 song Na Dil De Pardesi Nu, which was enhanced further in 2003 by Punjabi MC under the title of Jogi, fits so well in this rendition sung by Jasmine and Hanuman Kind. Intense, gritty, raw and full of energy, and I was expecting more of the same with the trailer, but I think it was a mixed bag for me, at least musically, on how the visuals were balanced with the score in this edit. I think what becomes very challenging is not only to flesh out the characters well, but have a universal score that fits the mood and temperament of all of the characters. It makes me wonder about the sheer volume of the material that the filmmaker has, because the trailer does feel like the rumors of Durandhar having an over 6-hour running time is not a stretch. Let's especially dive deep on what I love and what I do have issues with the Durandhar trailer, at least from what we can decipher now. I think a 4-minute trailer is rather indulgent. I understand that the material is dense, but the film's trailer does lose your interest slightly when it becomes just a stretch of introduction, gory action and blasts, versus even providing us a hint of what Ranveer Singh's covert mission may be about. What I do commend the makers for, however, and this is in sharp contrast to a terrible trailer like Singham Again, is that even though the trailer is 4 minutes long, I really don't know what this film is about. So kudos to the team, because all I have is a hint of what every character's personality and codename is. I do have to confess though, it seems like Ranveer Singh has been absolutely sidelined in the trailer and everyone else was a proper hero introduction. I think the first frame and introduction of the trailer was absolutely badass and intimidating, probably being the most gruesome and shocking reveal I've seen for a commercial Bollywood movie. I mean, to start on that page is ballsy, and to see Arjun Rampal being this bloodthirsty antagonist from the ISI was epic. Celebrated in the country where all national security decisions may be followed according to him. Torturing an Indian spy presumably, and I think the first frame of the trailer confirms that this movie is going to be A-rated and they are going to leave no stone unturned with the action. Introduced as the Angel of Death, Arjun Rampal's impression with the trailer really makes me believe that his presence is going to be insane. I say this also because Arjun, in my opinion, is extremely underrated in antagonist roles. He was terribly wasted in Dhakad recently, and commercial films like Om Shanti Om and Ravan really provided us a glimpse that he can tap into the dark side with ease. He was a clear standout in the trailer. I was recently watching a YouTube video talking about the age-old topic of why films don't look real anymore, and there is a section of the video where the creator explored movies set in real locations and how a large depth of field just allows for a more immersive viewing experience, and Durandhar really, from a cinematography and production design point of view, looks like it's going to be a feast for the eyes on the big screen. I would have actually preferred a little more dialogues and a glimpse from Ranveer Singh's character rather than just the montage of him walking around in slow motion and looking like $1,000,000, but I think they're intentionally keeping this at bay. It's a huge risk though. The makeup department has done a stellar job with R. Madhavan playing the charioteer of Karma, Ajay Sanyal, head of Indian intelligence. Moving on, I loved some of the montage shots of the action, especially the one snippet of a bike chase sequence. It's crazy that we have been fed such digital slop with commercial movies looking so artificial that I find myself just being excited that a chase sequence is actually happening on real locations. Akshaye Khanna as the apex predator, Rahman Dakat, seems to be a dependable Bahubali of the area of sorts with political influence, and I absolutely love the swagger and ease he has in front of camera. I say he has a Bahubali rather than a politician is because he doesn't feature in the posters behind him in a political rally, but may be influential enough to shift the tide of political rallies. There is a presence that just some actors have, you just have to watch whatever they feature in. Akshaye Khanna is one such actor. I can only assume that Ranveer Singh is to circumvent the influence of characters played by Arjun Rampal, Akshaye Khanna, and most importantly Sanjay Dutt, described as the product if Shaitan and Jinn were to sleep together. Sanjay Dutt will be playing an SP of the Pakistan police, a man who holds loyalty paramount, especially clear in his dialogues on what he will make people if he is double-crossed. A montage of action and blasts follow, with Ranveer Singh genuinely looking like a wounded animal coming back to Bollywood with a point to prove. I must say this again though, it slightly blows my mind on how ignored Ranveer Singh is in the trailer edit. Anyway, if I were to be honest with you, I think the teaser's impression was far more impactful than the trailer, and I say this because the teaser through the visuals and music provided us an overall vibe of the genre and the characters, just giving us enough, whereas the trailer almost took a linear structure of character introductions, which made the viewing experience after the first 2 minutes almost predictable. It has me slightly concerned yet hopeful as a viewer that the makers are dividing this tale into 2 parts because it really puts the pressure on the makers to deliver with part 1. I think the fact that the movie presents us a raw and more gritty aesthetic and treatment to Indian spies is what is keeping me hooked, and the kind of projects that Aditya Dhar has directed and backed as a producer keeps my faith in this film, that the last huge commercial venture from Hindi cinema in this calendar year will be worth the wait. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about the Durandhar trailer. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram, the handle is right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.